Everybody good? Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our special public meeting today on November 19th, 2024 of our Board of Education. May I ask you to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. First up will be our approval of agenda. May I get a motion, please? Megan, second Henry. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0. Should I do the, yeah, I should do that first, or wait till, yeah. So I do have some sad news to report. Unfortunately, today we wanted to remember one of our former trustees, Mr. Mike Facito, who passed away recently. Mr. Facito was a longtime trustee of the district and this, obviously of the Board of Education. I went back in some of the history to look at his past accomplishments, and I learned that not only did he serve, but he retired from the board after serving 27 years here. What an accomplishment. At the final, at his final board meeting, all three of his daughters were present, God bless you, that had gone through our school system, and he noted the pride in that meeting. I also found these quotes in the Riverhead News. In his nearly 3 decades on the board, he had seen the district change in many ways, as standardized testing and ever-present concerns over statewide tax cap had put the school boards under intense pressure in recent years. Still, Mr. Facito told reporters that despite the long hours, he simply wanted to help the students in his community. And his quote was, "We're all here working to help the kids," he said. So I'd like to ask you all to please take a moment. We're going to take a moment of silence. I'd like you to remember Mr. Mike Facito, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Welcome. Next up will be our superintendent's report. Mr. Poole.
Just briefly and related to the topic at hand last night, several trustees were at the meeting. We had a legislative committee meeting among many other topics, district advocacy areas, developing our priority brochures. One of the topics was the state's regionalization plan. The legislative committee was in full support of the letter of opposition and any action that the Board of Education takes to join litigation in opposition to the state's plans.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Appreciate that update. So I did want to share some opening remarks about this meeting under opportunity for board members. So I'm going to start off, and then I'll ask the board if anyone has anything to contribute. So today we're asking and we're considering to join litigation against the New York State Department of Education, NYSED, against the regionalization plan and accompanying emergency regulation that was published on September 25th in the New York State Register. We believe that this is a small investment against an attempt to clearly take away local control of our schools. Prior to considering this step, the board wrote an opposition letter to the emergency regulation that requires Shoreham-Wading River School District to take action by December 6th, 2024, which has, in our belief, been implemented without adequate consultation with our school board, educators, and affected communities as part of the plan because it lacks clarity. The vagueness of this is particularly concerning given the fact that there are significant changes the plan potentially proposes to local education control and resource management. For knowledge, Shoreham-Wading River currently supports and voluntarily participates in collaboration with our neighboring school districts and BOCES today in areas including such as athletics, student services, professional development, transportation, BOCES, and in contractual services. So I wanted to put that out there just for knowledge. Now I'll open it up for any opportunity for board members. Anyone want to share anything else? Okay.
Yeah, just really quick. Just thinking back to when we were all going through COVID and how well this district operated. You know, region. You know, just for our students, you know, what was best. And we didn't look at the state. You know, we went above and beyond constantly.
That's right.
From opening up a school to providing Chromebooks. This board always has the best interests of our students. I just don't want that to be overlooked and have the state come in and kind of rule on that. So definitely opposed to this plan moving forward.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and I want to add to that this board, there was plenty that we were able to do in order to provide what we believed and our community believed. That was.
It's
Hello?
not working.
It's not on? This one's not working? Hello?
Is yours working?
I just wanted to add to that this Board of Education and this community, we had the opportunity, wherever possible, to positively impact our students. But there was so much that was mandated by the state during COVID, at the threat of removing our funding, at the threat of removing our Board of Education, the threat of removing our superintendent, that we were mandated to comply with, whether we liked it or not. This regionalization plan is extremely concerning. What seems to be just as concerning is the lack of outrage amongst other districts, amongst the union members. I think that it could possibly be the beginning of the end of the education system that we currently have in New York State, and which we all pay quite a bit of money in taxes in order to provide for our students, for our children. I believe that we have we have currently local control at this point to an extent, but to provide the very best for our Shoreham-Wading River students. And we're not considering the engagement of this lawsuit or the retaining of this attorney's services lightly. Every other opportunity that we've had, like for instance with the J. Jewel lawsuit, we did not have to pay for that. If there wasn't any, trying to figure out how we engaged in that lawsuit without any threat of losing our aid and our funding.
Any backlash.
And there was no backlash. And then we ended up, that lawsuit ended up winning. We ended up getting a considerable amount back. And out of those proceeds, that was how the attorney was paid. Unfortunately, with this lawsuit, we do have to engage the services of this attorney. We met with him tonight. We all left work early to try and meet with that attorney. And there is a cap on this resolution that we're going to be voting on tonight that we can then continue to extend, just as a side note, so that everybody in the community understands what it means for this board to vote on engaging the services of an additional attorney, and what that retainer looks like.
I think part of it is the consideration is that this is a small price to pay for what we believe is local control. And I think, with what Mike said and Katie has mentioned, I think at the end of the day, it comes back to the preparedness of where we were. The fact that this is under an emergency rule or emergency mandate, it brings back a lot of our COVID memories being on the board. We've been fortunate enough to work together for a while and seeing what that means. And the fact that they have asked for it in such a fast time frame and the extent of the information that they're seeking, Mr. Poole, if you even want to comment on it, it was strengths and needs, I think it's called, is the primary.
I'm just going to say it's excessive and it's unclear how the collection and required extensive analysis would lead to additional shared opportunities between school districts in Eastern Suffolk BOCES. Those shared opportunities are extensive already.
Yep. And
as the state has not made it clear as to what an outcome or a metric would be for that as of yet, and then we're left wondering what is all that going to end up looking like once it's collected and assessed and analyzed and approved by state end.
Absolutely.
I think it also leaves some questions. I mean, the information that is available to the state under education law. So it begs the question, why go into an emergency action? Why, where is the due process in that? And when I think about the actions that our cabinet has taken over the last years, I'm incredibly proud of the strategic plan and the leadership from the board, from the cabinet. And I think that we have really created superior educational opportunities for our kids in the face of really adverse times. And the idea of taking that local control away from us is troubling. It's very concerning.
Absolutely. If you're listening at home or just here in the audience, what I'd recommend, if you haven't had the chance to do, is visit some of these sites so you can learn and become more informed as a community. and, obviously for the benefit of your students in the future. NYSED, NYSED, look up their plans. This is combining at the same time. What kind of is the perfect storm in my mind is we are expecting to see a foundation aid formula change or foundation aid update. The Rockefeller Institute was retained to come up with foundation aid. That's, in our minds, approximately 30%, something like that, of our budget today, Jerry? Something along those lines, maybe a little less. 20.
Foundation aid is $10 million of our
So it's
$80 million
less.
budget.
So it's 15%?
Overall
Yeah.
state aid is around 16 to 17%.
Okay.
And foundation aid is a significant part of that.
So I'd encourage residents, that report is due on December 1st. At the same time, we have graduation measures. There's a 10-year look forward from now until like 2034, I think it is, Jerry, to look at the graduation outcomes of a high school student, what those attributes look like. I'd encourage you to visit, see what the presentations are that New York State is presenting on behalf of what your student is going to be educated on, and you could decide and either advocate or I guess be a part of it, be a part of this process, because things are definitely changing. I do know that also the financial administrators, there's a coalition of school board members that's out there. There's a website they have, or I think it's called literally the Long Island Coalition for School Boards. If you get a moment, take a visit and see what they're talking about and weigh in on it. I think get involved. Anything else that you want to say? Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo what everybody else said. The biggest concerns are this one-size-fit-all mentality that it's going to work
Yeah.
for our district. We've spent a lot of time building district goals, creating programs that directly benefit our community and our children. And to strip that away, and the potential for having to share resources,
Yep.
the equitability in that,
and
and
the
who
amount of
gets
equity.
what and when,
Yep.
we lose all that control. And what's really troubling is that this is out there and there's really no plan that's been communicated on how they're going to execute. And so we're kind of flying blind in a way. So I'm absolutely, in favor of signing on for whatever we can do to prevent this from happening.
Thanks, Jim.
I appreciate the outreach that we've gotten from the community in regards to this issue, but I also want to remind people, yesterday, Mr. Wu alluded to the fact that we had a legislative committee meeting. Some of us on the board here attended that, but also, as community members, you can also reach out to your legislators. You're a large contingency of people that when you reach out to them, they then can put pressure at the legislative level. So we are 7 volunteers as board members that come here elected by you. We only have so much strength. Again, I advocate that you guys also reach out. People at home that are listening, if you're against it, write to your legislators. There's no more better strength than a community reaching out like that collectively.
Tom, could we maybe put on our website some links, because there's a couple of competing sources, so
Yes.
maybe we can, even though this meeting will be up, I think it's working now, thank you, Ricky. The meeting will be up,
Yep.
as well as our letter is up, but maybe there could be like a one-stop shop spot for people for resources,
Okay.
and then like where to click.
Yeah, we could, as far as reaching out to a local legislator or the New York State Board of Regents or any
Just
other official
resources,
Just
that
links.
would,
Yeah,
links
to
and
the-
things like that, sure.
Okay.
Maybe a
Thank
link
you.
to the actual plan itself. that
Right.
we
Yeah,
have, yeah.
Yep, maybe into NYSED, Jerry, to
Mhm.
regionalization process, so
Yeah.
you can get some perspective.
Just another concern, I know this is maybe the phase one, this, regionalization plan, but what's phase two? Is phase two a reorganization plan? Which, they
Right.
really haven't, disclosed, what's
right.
the next step?
The ambiguity is totally
So,
concerning.
That's,
Yeah.
So my thought process around that, Mike, you're spot on. The R word changes to reorganization very quickly. It goes from where we are to reorganizing school districts potentially. Because just so you know, the 5 big school districts like New York City were not included in this emergency measure. So schools like ours are. And more than likely, if the state decides to change that foundation aid formula, some school districts, this is just a general guess on my part, would be forced to have conversations with neighboring schools about combining resources as a result of less state aid. Fortunately, we have such a strong community that supports our schools because we're primarily funded through our taxpayers here. That is somewhat of a plus, but it's also a negative as well, all right? It's a little bit of both. We obviously would love more state aid to furnish the programs, but it's because of you, it's on the backs of everyone in this community that we're able to supply and provide all the wonderful things that we do. I think you could sign up to speak. Well, it's not really how we do it per se. No, it's okay. You're welcome to sign up to speak and ask a question if you
No, I
wish
think
later.
they
Yeah.
could,
Yeah,
at the
statement
end
from
of the
resident,
meeting,
maybe
they can speak.
Yeah, right, yeah, at the end, yeah, okay.
Additional comments.
Okay, sorry about that, but appreciate that.
At the end, you can come see me, I'll give you
You
information.
can, maybe if you want to give it to someone else that wants to speak, or give that question to someone, that would be fine. Thank you.
You can do that next, statements from residents.
What's that,
are
Mike?
next.
I'm
Statements
sorry.
from residents. Jimmy,
Yeah.
statements from residents are next, so if they have statements.
If it's on the agenda,
Yes,
Right?
it is, yeah, statements from residents.
Or there's a portion at the end of the meeting where you
The
have.
only reason they're asking for this come up is so that folks at home can hear, because there may be questions that you have that might be related to them, so don't.
Yeah, it's not because I don't want you to ask the question, I want you to ask the question, it's just we have a format for it. Thank you.
Sure.
You know what, I'll do that.
Go ahead,
Why
why
don't
don't
we
you
go
open
for
that
statements?
up?
So why don't we do this? We're gonna go statements
So-
from residents, how about that? Statements from residents, agenda items only. Go ahead, come on up. Please just state your name for us and where you're from. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Miranda. I'm from Shoreham.
Thanks, Miranda.
I wanted to know if this does pass, then what is SWR going to gain from it passing? Because I feel like I've only heard negative things, so are we just going to be screwed if it passed?
No, that's a good question. Some of the board members had something similar. I would say to you that we're unsure. What will happen is, just full disclosure, that the attorney involved will put in a temporary restraining order against the emergency measure, which is school districts like ours would not need to submit by December 6th the requirement, this mandate that's on us. If that's successful, if it's not, then more than likely it gets started to go into the adjudication process with courts. So it'll be seen in court. We would still have to submit by December 6th, the requirement, but it would go into courts. And being quite honest with you, it's a state component, not sure. It'll come down to which judges are assigned, what courts are involved.
but I
So
think-
we, go ahead,
I'm
Jim.
sorry, I just think, just to address the question, I mean, obviously, there could potentially cost savings, there could be access to, different programs that we don't have, but that's all, I'm sorry. Cost savings, potentially, access to, other programs that we may not have available in this district, but that's still unknown. We have no template, we have nothing that we're working off of, but I just want to address your question about the benefits.
I just feel like that, I bought a house in this district because we have more resources than other
Yep.
schools, and I can't really think of something that another school has that we do, so I was wondering if you guys had any examples of another school that we would get something from, because our taxes are higher than most districts, and so I just don't get why we're being offered this proposition if we're not going to be getting anything.
Or not, it's being forced on
Or
us. so-
forced.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
yeah,
Do they know that we're not going to be getting anything?
well, that's why we're fighting, yeah.
Yeah, just to say, that I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
speaking
and
about it.
part of the concerning nature is that it is so ambiguous. We don't know anything about it. We don't think it's gonna shake out well. That's why we're here.
I think the
Thank you for your
opposite is
comment.
gonna happen. I think that other districts are gonna benefit from what we have to offer.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And it's
I was
going
just gonna
to,
say that.
yeah.
And just, not to bring up a negative, something that we don't have, but, part of this is enrollment. They keep talking about enrollment, declining enrollment across Long Island. So here, we found ways to work the enrollment issues. Like, for instance, we offer some classes every other year, like AP Physics, AP Chem. So that may be a resource where neighboring district offers AP Physics the year we don't. Again, I don't know, but they're using declining enrollment as a reason to kind of look at this regionalization. I believe.
But we've had a cabinet that has really worked hard to plan to meet our needs in our
Correct.
district. So to Mr. Lewis's point, offering AP, although it's not optimal, but offering AP class every other year is a great way that we've met the needs for our district.
I would just add that from state ed, they're looking at it from a statewide perspective. So when you have rural districts upstate in Franklin County that don't have resources and should be encouraged to pool them, it makes a little bit more sense. On Long Island, it's a clear indication of not really understanding how Long Island and BOCES works, and so giving full control over to Eastern Suffolk BOCES superintendent is not what's needed for Suffolk County.
Yeah.
Thank
for
you.
your question.
Thank you for your question.
Stephanie stepped out, but I think we have
I was gonna say,
another.
do we have
Brittany.
another? Hold on.
Hi, I'm Roberta. I've been in touch with pretty much the board about everything concerning for Shoreham. And I thank you guys for always answering my emails in a timely fashion. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Poole. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone. So I got a little sidetracked. I have a few, I know it's not a Q&A, but I have a few questions. So BOCES, we're in a contract with them, correct?
Mhm.
Eastern Suffolk BOCES.
We
And
contract services with them.
we contract services. If we were to break a contract with BOCES, it's a loaded question, but
No, it's not.
I mean, it's an option,
Mhm.
because as Shoreham, as a small district, as a taxpayer, as a community, we pay a lot into, you know, our sports, our students, our curriculum. If we were to break it, what are we looking at as a,
So like a potential impact of withdrawing our relationship with BOCES?
is
that
it an
what you're
option? And I mean, I know we're not given a lot of options sometimes
Yeah.
with things with New York State, so is
We'll
that
look at
an
that.
option?
Disassociating from BOCES would have a negative impact on a school district. We have multiple, not the least of which is special education. So through contracts with BOCES, students with special needs are able to get services through BOCES, whether it's an out-of-district setting along the way or related services. We have software subscriptions and a whole host of things if you'd like to learn more about
No,
what
I know,
is part of our BOCES
I
budget.
guess
But I
it's
would
kind
say
of
this as
rhetorical. I know a
well.
lot that
For
we
every
lose.
$100 that we spend at BOCES, we do get expense-driven aid back the following year, so we get $30 back on the 100. So it's already a shared service with cost savings for districts.
Mhm.
BOCES is set up that if 2 or 3 school districts, let's say 2 or 3 school districts wanted to create a shared AP program, I could approach BOCES with the other, 2 or 3 school districts. We could sit down and say, hey, we'd like to work with you to create a shared service for AP programs, and we'd then create that to the benefit of the school districts, and we'd all get aid back on the development of that shared service. So the ability to create a shared service based on felt need between neighboring school districts is already available for us.
If we're being forced into regionalization by NISNED and BOCES, do you feel like pulling from a contract from BOCES would, as opposed to going into regionalization, where, I guess what I'm saying
I
is
know
the
what you're
balance, how much are we losing
Yep.
by doing regionalization compared to losing a contract with BOCES?
Don't know what
I don't know if we have the
You
full
don't-
assessment for
You
you
don't know
at
what
this
the end,
moment. Yeah, we don't know
it's
what
not
the-
clear what,
Yeah.
the professed goal of regionalization is great, right? It's,
Yeah.
let's make sure that every kid in New York State has what they need to be
Oh, yeah, it
successful.
sounds wonderful. Their
and we
website sounds
think-
wonderful.
And
You
we think
say,
we can,
put it on the
nobody
webpage,
can
but
argue,
it's-
that's a worthy goal. We all want everybody to have that, but
Yep.
it isn't clear yet what's to come out of that that's different from what's already available. Mr. Sheridan mentioned a list of items that are already shared services between school districts. Some of those don't even involve BOCES at all. And then there's a whole host of other ones that, because 7 or 8 districts use a service, the price comes down and becomes aidable for the school district along the way. So it's hard to know.
do you guys have an idea when it comes to the Big Five, why they're excluded? Do they already have this implemented in the Big Five, Buffalo, Syracuse, New York City? Are we trying to be like them? Are we trying to say, hey,
Just
my
to be
staff
sure-
or administration is,
Yeah,
I think they added more districts too. It's not, I think it's like 8.
it is. So
Yeah.
do these, I'll call them Big Five, maybe there's 8, Big 8.
Yeah.
Do they have something already implemented like that we're trying to model, that we have the data from,
I
or
don't know. That-
you don't know?
I don't know that I can answer that 100%. I do know in the city, for example, right, there are specialty, like magnet schools, I'll call them, for high schools and things like that, where students can apply and attend. I don't know
I
anything
mean, there's
more
some
than
on
that.
Long Island magnets.
They have components of regionalization.
So they have
in
compliance,
play,
thank
yes.
Megan. So they're
They
more than
have some
likely-
in play already?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have pieces of it, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out why they're excluded.
Well, like New York City has like 1 million plus students and they have 1 district. So it's almost like they're governed by the New York City
New York-
Department of Ed
They're
Already.
sharing services.
already. Yeah, and they're basically sharing
So
services.
in all honesty, we're kind of, when you look at it from the outside, we're trying to model after them.
I think so.
Are they trying to do that with Long Island?
That's a
Kind of seems
secret.
like it.
If they were more clear, let's go back to this emergency regulation. If they were clear on what it was, they just call it for general welfare. There's not a specific goal in mind. But yet, as of October 1st, 2025, the regional superintendent, which is the BOE superintendent, is supposed to have agreed upon plans, right, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, for our school.
I think
We
it
don't
could
even know what that
easily
looks like.
infer That's the goal.
I'm sorry, Megan? What was that?
It seems to be.
It seems to be. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I did have another question, but in the name of equity, do you feel, so I don't think you guys even have these answers. In the name of equity, if we take us and, neighboring districts, let's use Riverhead.
Mhm.
Our taxes, there's no talk of us having the same tax bracket as Riverhead then across the board, because New York would never do something like that, right? Right.
No.
So we still bear the burden of our taxes, but allocate our resources to,
Correct, right.
districts.
They just haven't said.
Yeah,
We have no
so-
idea.
Yeah, we really don't know.
Municipal law, so you have towns that need to abide by that, and how state education, how education law plays into that. So none of that has been even factored in. The fact that it's an emergency request, that's where you start and you go, why is it an emergency request?
I've never heard of a
And
DEI
there's not enough
emergency.
detail, right, behind it, that to really answer some of these questions. So as a board, I think we've met and said, this doesn't sound right to us. Our goal really is to retain local control as much as possible. We are under certain requirements to the education department in terms of what we can and can't do. So we're trying, in my opinion, we're trying at this point to really stop and say, let's take a closer look at this. I don't believe it's an emergency, so let's talk about it. Let's see where it goes. And I think at this point, this juncture, that's all we can do is actually sign on to that and say, let's spend more time thinking about what we're really doing here. If other people don't want to take the time to, and I don't mean these people, I mean
Yeah,
people
districts and.
somewhere else don't want to take the time and they want to push this through, that's where I fall back to what I said to everyone else. I thought we have legislators that are there for us to do that. And so we should definitely be reaching out.
I've reached out to Giglio,
Good.
Palumbo, I've CC'd them on your
And-
emails.
And if on
I pretty
your
much
part-
CC them with everything.
and Ms. Lambert, on your part, if you can help organize that as well, as much as you can, I mean, again, we're 7 volunteers, we get elected by you, and we try our best to do what we can, but I go back to the community. I've lived here almost 25 years, and this is a great community, I don't want to see this change, and I'd like, other people to also be part of that. And I think you're a voice that can help to that. I can see you have.
I do have one other
volunteers
question.
too, right?
Yeah.
I do have another question, though. So you said you met with the lawyer about litigation. Two questions, a two-part question to it, and I apologize if it is extended. We're taking on the financial burden of the lawyer, correct? If other, was that, yeah?
Well,
It's a resolution tonight.
A
Oh,
portion
I'm
of it.
sorry,
portion,
It
not
needs
the-
to be
not the
voted
full,
on
no,
whether,
not at all.
okay.
But it's
So if
also
we
being
take
split
on,
across the school districts that are.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So the more districts we have jump on, the less burden we have as a
Correct.
community.
Correct.
And the more kind of backbone we have
Correct.
against New York State, I would hope.
The strength in numbers on
Yeah.
anything we ever do, we have a voice. We vote for officials, we're all voted in here, as Henry said. We all advocate for our community, for our students. It's no different. If you all feel the same that we do, love the advocacy, we could use it. At this time, I think it's the time to stand up. There's a lot of things that are gonna happen in the next 30 days, you're about to see. And we felt it rose to the occasion to even have this meeting today, and I know people had commented.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having this meeting, by
So
the way.
we knew that we needed to respond rather quickly, and that's why we're having our own little special meeting, as they say. So here
Mr.
we
Sharon,
are.
do we know the actual close of the public commentary date?
I think it was,
Did we,
20,
It's
the
like
21st.
yeah, I think it's,
21st.
what's today?
So-
Yeah, so it's the 19th,
I
so
don't
2
think
days.
they
It's this
take any
this
of
week,
that
right?
into
Yeah.
consideration,
I think it's a
but
Friday.
it's, I mean, I've
think
seen
it's
it.
the end of
I've
this
sat through the
Oh, no,
Regents
Thursday.
boards, and, I've seen people come up and talk, and they go back and make their unilateral decision before we even speak. So, I mean, would it be nice that if they considered what we said? Absolutely. Do I think they do? Absolutely not. And my other question is, so with the litigation, are we, I just want to be clear, going, against New York State Education Department.
We
Are
are.
we saying that the route in which they are doing this, the SAPA laws, they should be doing it through the right legislative branch? Is that correct?
That's right. We're saying that.
We're saying you're not doing it correctly. You're creating an emergency order where there is no emergency, so we need to go back to basically.
I think you're bringing
No
up,
due
there's going to
process.
be multiple, there's
okay.
multiple arguments. The
Okay.
first is that NICEAD is not a legislative body and shouldn't be legislating or putting out quote-unquote laws or effectively. And then there's other arguments that can be definitely made around what has occurred. So that's where it starts.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
guys
Brittany.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Any other comments from residents? Okay. Moving right along. Buried my cheat sheet. Buried my cheat sheet. There we go. All right. So up next will be our votes and resolutions. We have one tonight. It's 2425091, which is the approval of the retainer agreement with Regano LLC for regionalization litigation. May I get a motion, please? First Henry, second Megan. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0. Okay. Do we have anything else other than, any other comments from residents before we go? Okay.
I just had a question, Tom,
Yes,
about
please.
the addition, so we already signed one letter last meeting,
Oh, good point.
but then there was another letter, correct?
So glad you brought it up. There's a rebuttal letter that, I forgot the title, I thought I had it in my notes here.
Jim?
There's a rebuttal letter that exists as well that
It's
many.
from the Coalition of New York State School Board members.
Thank you, Jim.
Mhm.
And I believe it's full of, I'm trying to see how,
It's a summary of the litigation that was sent to the state
Mirrors it.
already.
and it contains many school districts at this point.
It contains 30 districts.
31,
Thank you, and it's
31.
growing.
21 full board.
I want, on just consensus, we're okay to add our district's name to that? Okay, great. So we're also going to be part of a rebuttal where the original attorney wrote to the state, to NICEAD, about this emergency order and asked some specific questions and was told this was more like a conversation starter. And we're going to also be a part of that now on the rebuttal, back on that letter. Okay? Very good. Thank you, Katie, for bringing that up.
And I think in terms of outreach, so the links on the website, there was some confusion about like what might be the most efficient way to have your voice heard. So, just to be clear, to put on the website, something where there's a link for like the optimal way to reach out. People can write individual emails, but there's some collective, possibly more impactful.
Is there any legal issues with us posting that on our website?
I mean, other districts have done it.
They have? Okay.
Yeah, other
What,
districts
with,
have done
with
it. I think it's just
post
providing
information? Yeah.
people a link, an opportunity to reach out. Yeah, I don't think we're not collecting the information. We would just be posting a link.
Could be done through the legislative committee links.
Yeah, in the we have the legislative committee spot.
There it is. Okay, yeah, so, thank you.
And then maybe the community would be interested to know, what the attorney said something about, that there's 10 districts that are now on this lawsuit,
Thank you.
or are now signing on for this retainer.
Perfect.
And then an additional 6 that are currently, which I believe, well, you said 6, right?
6 that are
I
currently
think
signed.
6, it's
10 that are in
reversed.
discussions to sign.
Yeah,
Oh, 6 signed, 10.
but they're pushing it back a little bit because they're anticipating more.
Mhm.
Right, so that's one thing that we can have an impact also to, if you know people in other districts, to encourage them to join this lawsuit, that's in our best
Best
financial interest to, that's what the coalition letter also kind of speaks to, but
That's right.
individually, just word of mouth, stakeholders should be reaching out to people in other districts.
And perhaps, Mr. Sheridan, we can also post the coalition letter and repost our original letter.
Yep,
Yeah.
so our original letter is there, I think that's a good idea. And then the
Just all
rebuttal
one
letter.
document, though?
Yeah, the rebuttal letter should be posted, since we're part of it. I agree with that, Megan, thank you. Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Okay, good, thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
I'd like to take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, and we're going to enter executive session. May I get a motion? And I'll explain. Go ahead, motion Megan, second Katie. Any discussion or questions on that? All in favor?
No, you have to
No,
read.
what's the-
7-0, yeah. So we're going to
Read
enter executive session for the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property or the proposed acquisition of securities or the sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicly would substantially affect the value thereof, or matters which that impact the public safety if disclosed.
Okay.
All in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for all being here today.
Yeah, thanks for coming.